Well, it's back in one piece again, and it's definitely not as pretty as it was. We definitely have some battle scars now here. I've got the wing reattached. I did notice out at the field, but it actually cracked the fuselage almost all the way up, clean through. I got that glued back together, but that looks like right there where the wing attaches to the fuselage. Of course, you don't have a lot of foam right there, so it looks like that's going to be the weak point. So if this is successful, I think on the Viper and on this one, I might put in some 2mm carbon right across this area just to reinforce it, because you've got so much weight, in front of that with the battery. So I got my nose wheel reattached. I incorrectly stated in the first video, I believe I incorrectly stated that the CG range on this was from 60mm to 70mm back from where the leading edge of the wing attaches to the fuselage. That is incorrect. That was the range for the Viper. On this one, it is 75mm to 85mm back from where the leading edge of the wing attaches to the fuselage. If only I had made the mistake of using the Viper CG location on this plane when I launched it the first time, I would have been nose heavy instead of tail heavy, and at least it would have been controllable. Unfortunately, I didn't make that mistake when I actually set my CG. I had my CG set right in the middle at 80mm. So I have moved my CG 10mm forward of where I had it for the first flight, because it was extremely tail heavy. I'm also not sure that there was too much movement in the ailerons, because at that point the ailerons were completely ineffective. This jet was in a state of stall from the time that I let go of it until the time that it hit the ground. I was trying to make it back around to the lane to see if I could get it back on the ground, but unfortunately I couldn't keep it in the air long enough to get there, and I didn't want it to go down in the scrub like it did. But anyway, I've got a 1300 milliamp hour 4S LiPo. It's a 70C. It weighs 154 grams. So I can get this CG with that 4S LiPo. It's going to be really heavy. It's 558 grams all up weight with that LiPo. So we will have to see how this next launch goes. I don't know. I know it's going to have plenty of thrust, but will this airframe be able to launch with that weight at my altitude? I don't know, but we're going to give it a try. I thought about putting one of my 1050s in there, but I couldn't even get that CG with my 1050 4Ss. They're just too light. So that's what I'm going to have to go with. I certainly can't get the CG with my 1500 3S LiPos either. So it's going to be these 4Ss or nothing. So anyway, it's back together. It's ready to go. I've got my CG set 5mm forward of the entire specified CG range that they have on here. 10mm forward of where I had it when I first launched it. I have it balanced neutrally at that point. So either that's going to be spot on, or it should be a little nose heavy. It sure should not be tail heavy at that location. You know what I mean? I mean, that's pretty far forward. Right here is where my original CG was, and right here is where my new one is, 10mm forward. So we will see how that goes. Either it's going to fly or it's going to crash, one of the two. And if it crashes, I don't know if I'm going to spend any more time on it, but we will give it a shot today. So I will see you out at the field. It's fly or crash for the T33. Second attempt. Alright, I think I already spoke about my CG, the adjustments I made, but the only thing that concerns me now is I don't think it's going to be tail heavy like it was. The thing that concerns me now is the weight. I'm at 588 grams all up weight, which I think is pretty heavy for this plane for my altitude. But anyway, so my hope is once I launch it, it will stay airborne.
I don't know. I've got the gyro position so that there's no input. It's in complete manual mode. All right. Launching. This is going to be more of a checkout flight to make sure it doesn't do anything weird. See if I can bring it down a little bit. Back off the throttle a little bit. But at least we're in the air now, huh? I've got my timer set for 3 minutes. It's amazing you can get a plane in the air when the CG is halfway correct, isn't it? Alright, I'm not seeing any real bad behavior out of it right now. Just cruising around with it. Alright, so let's come back through here and see what kind of elevator authority we have on it. Because I have it set for low rates right now. Yeah, definitely have good elevator authority. Decent roll rate. I'm keeping altitude because I don't know what kind of behavior I'm going to get out of it, because you know, especially after the repair. I got a balloon crew down there. Okay, so I'm starting to get my haptic now. So I'm going to bring it back around and see if we can land it. Floating it in, floating it in, floating it in. Oh man. Oh no.
All right, well, that didn't go very well. Well, the flight went great. I didn't see any bad behavior out of the plane. I had to keep the altitude a little high, and it was hard to see the plane. But it really surprised me with that 3S Plus power system that I have in it. I have a 4S LiPo in it, and the LiPo that I was using for the flight is a Turnigy Nano-Tech. It's a 4S 1300 milliamp hour 70C LiPo that weighs 154 grams. Now, I totally screwed up the landing. That was complete pilot error. I don't know what's going on. Me and this T33 are just not getting along. We're going to have to make our peace and get, make the best of this. But anyway, it is what it is. I totally screwed up the landing. When I came in with too much altitude, too much speed. I expected that this plane was going to drop pretty good when I cut the power, and it didn't. It glided and glided and glided, and I waited until I ran out of room where the road was curving over there. I should have aborted and gone around, but I wasn't sure how much battery power I was going to have left, if I would have enough battery power to make another circuit, so I risked it and I lost on that bet. So anyway, my horizontal stabilizers ripped off. I didn't realize there wasn't any carbon in the horizontal stabilizer, but there's not. I can see now that there is no carbon in the horizontal stabilizer. So I will try and get most of the repairs effected today, and I will get it back in the air again next week, and hopefully me and this T33 will get along much better than we did today. But I'm very happy with the amount of power. I'm very happy with the way it handled in the air. I'm very happy with the amount of flight time that I think I'm going to get out of it. Of course, I wasn't heavy in the throttle, but I checked all the cells when I landed, and it was 3.78 volts per cell all the way across. And I had my timer set for 3 minutes. So I might be able to get, I'll do a test flight when I get it back in the air at 3.5 minutes, and then see how much voltage I have left. As long as I have enough voltage left that I could do 2 or 3 circuits under minimal power to make it back and land if there's traffic going through, then I'll keep it at 3.5 minutes. Otherwise, I'll have to keep it at 3 minutes for my flight time. But I haven't even had a chance to check out my landing gear yet. Isn't that amazing? I want to thank all those who provided input for proper CG on this jet, people who have it and have flown it. I think that the easiest way to measure for the CG, because of these angles on the wings, I'm not sure everybody is measuring their CG in the exact same location. So what I'm going to do is give you my measurement from the front of the wing plate, where the wing plate attaches to the fuselage. I think that is the easiest, most consistent way to measure the CG on this. And where I have my CG on this right now is at 65 millimeters back from where the front of the wing plate meets the fuselage. Okay, 65 millimeters back from that. Now, in order to get a neutral balance on that CG, and when I say neutral balance, when I balance it at that point, the plane is completely horizontal. The tail is not drooping, the nose is not drooping, it's completely neutral. In order to get that neutral balance at that CG, I had to put my battery in, and the front of my battery is all the way to the front of the canopy. So both sides of the battery are actually touching both sides of the fuselage. So I've got my battery pushed all the way forward at 154 grams in order to get a neutral balance on that CG. So with the recommended battery, a 3S 1300 milliamp hour 30C LiPo, I don't know how you could possibly use that battery and get a proper CG on this plane. So, you know, the first time out, even if I'd had my 3S 1300 milliamp hour 30C LiPo pushed all the way forward, it still would have been extremely tail heavy. So I don't think that's going to be possible to do that. I have it set up with a 3S Plus power system. So on my 4S, I have the top end of my throttle limited to 77% of the throttle range. The top of the throttle range is cut off at 77%. So when I give full stick, it's only pushing out, requesting 77% of the total throttle range. That allows me to keep the amp draw just under 30 amps. So I can go full throttle with it, and I don't have to worry about burning up that ESC. And as you saw, I had plenty of power. Now when I get this repaired, I'll do another check flight with it. Hopefully I won't screw up the landing again. And then we'll perform some maneuvers on it. What I found with some of these jets, specifically my F-86, is I have the CG set back far enough that that allows me to pull the nose up when I come in for landing. It's a little bit further back than the plane likes it, because when I'm pulling a loop or doing a split S maneuver with the CG pushed so far backward, if you don't keep the speed up, the plane will actually roll back over on you. If you try to pull too tight with the loop or the split S maneuver, the plane will actually roll over on you. So I need to test this one out to make sure that this CG is good for this plane when performing maneuvers. It took off nice and pretty, it flew nice and pretty. If I had messed up the landing, it would have been an extremely successful checkout flight, and then I would have been able to perform some maneuvers with it. Hopefully the next time I take it out, that will be the case. But I want to thank those guys again who provided me with information on what they were using for their CG on this plane. That worked out extremely well. I was surprised at how much lift this produced at my altitude at this weight. So that is absolutely not going to be a problem. I think I could probably actually put a little heavier battery in it. Looking at how it flew today and how it launched, I launched at 100% throttle and gave it, I would say, a pretty good chuck. I gave it a pretty good chuck because I was really worried about the weight on this. So, but it didn't drop, took right off. It didn't start wagging its wings. So as far as the balance on this plane and the setup, the low rates I have 8mm on the elevator, 8mm on the ailerons, 50% expo on both of them. Now until I get more time on it and perform maneuvers with it, I don't know if I will keep it that way or if I will change some of that. Chances are I will probably change some of it. But those settings with the CG and the low rate settings on the control surface movements, elevator and aileron will definitely give you a successful maiden flight on a 4S LIPO. So anyway, stay tuned. I will get it repaired. I will, weather permitting, I will have it back in the air again next week, and we will hopefully be able to perform some aerobatic maneuvers with it and really test out the amount of power that it has and the CG and the control surface movements and make sure everything is good, and then we'll see what we need to adjust from that point. So thank you much, and I will see you in the air.